Welcome to the Life's Better podcast, where we talk about how life is so much better with God, community, and purpose. Today, we're going to start off by asking a question. Josh, do you think that you're more of a giver, or do you think you're more of a taker in life?
Judging myself, I'm going to say I'm a giver.
Would Emily think that you're more of a giver?
I would hope so.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably where you're at. So here's where we're heading today. We're going to try to determine whether or not that's actually true. Like, is Josh really a giver, or is he more of a taker? And this is something that you guys can play along with as well. Are you a giver, or are you a taker? And most of us, we probably have a leaning towards one or the other.
Yeah.
There is a third category, though. A guy by the name of Adam Grant. He is a professor, a writer, communicator, researcher. He says that there is a larger category that is actually a matcher. Matcher being somebody who has no problem giving, but doesn't want to be the only one giving.
Yeah.
It's like a give and take.
Yeah.
And they're fine with that. So maybe you find yourself more in the matching, but we're going to determine this, and we're going to do it by playing a game. And this is a game that we hope you guys can play along with us. We're going to have some scenarios. There's going to be some multiple choice having to do with those scenarios, and you just determine what would you normally do.
Yeah.
And this is a very scientific game, actually.
Very scientific.
It is one that has been tried, tested. It is proven to really hone in. No, this is just something we made up.
I was waiting for that.
We just made this dumb thing up. I think you'll actually find yourself leaning one way or the other by the end of the game, but this is not scientific
at
all.
I was
like,
oh,
really?
Wow.
Yeah.
This is cool.
All right, so Josh, I'm going to go first.
Okay.
We've got in our fancy little...
You're going to take first.
I am. Wow, that's telling. Okay, I'm gonna read first a category here, or a scenario, I should say, and then I'm gonna give you the multiple choice here. Okay, first question, or first scenario. You're going to watch a movie with friends or family. Is this something that you do on a regular basis?
All the time.
Okay. How do you typically make the decision about what movie to watch? A, you lobby hard for your preference. B, you let others choose the movie. Or C, you realize the group often lets you choose the movie, so this time you go with their suggestion. A, B, or C. What's typical?
None of those. C, I guess, is closest,
Okay.
probably. Yeah.
What would be, since it's not on here, what would it naturally be?
So Emily and I, we watch movies all the time. It's
Okay.
like one of our favorite things to do. And we very quickly realized that we're both kind of A. Like, I get tired of watching all her movies. She gets tired of watching all mine. And so we have this thing where we both have lists of movies that we want to watch. And when it's my turn to pick, she lists off 5 movies from her.
Okay.
And I pick one of hers.
Interesting.
And then when it's her turn to pick, I list 5 of my movies, and she picks one of mine.
I would say that sounds like a matcher to me.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely matching.
For those who are actually dialed into our choices, not Josh's, A, if you chose A, you're probably leaning more towards taker. B, giver, and C is matcher. All right, Josh, you want to read the next one?
Sure. All right, we're going to go with this one. So that's number 4.
Okay.
You have a disagreement with a friend. They see a situation one way and you another. How does the disagreement end?
Okay.
A, you let the issue go on and on. You let the issue go and move on.
Okay.
That's A. B, you call a ceasefire. You agree to disagree. Or C, you continue to argue your point of view, even coming up with logical arguments that you're no longer in their company.
So you're thinking like rationally, like, oh man, I should have said this, I should have said that with the C one? Okay.
With C, it's like so you're going so far, you're continuing it so far that you're no longer in their company. Like you're not gonna. Like,
But I'm still arguing
yeah.
in my head. Okay.
Yeah.
I would probably lean towards B and C. Like, I will let it go, like, hey, we're going to disagree on this one, but I absolutely do you know what? I should have said this. This would have won the argument.
Yeah, I could have won with this.
Absolutely do that.
All right.
So what am I leaning towards?
You're leaning toward B or C, which is matcher or taker.
Yeah.
So
I'm right around that matcher taker. Okay, all right.
all right.
No surprise there, actually. Not with that one anyway. All right, Josh.
Okay.
You're working on a team project and one of your team members asks you for a favor. What do you think to yourself? Again, you're not responding to them, but what are you thinking in your own mind? Am I going to get anything out of this? B, this may help when I ask them for a favor. Or C, I'd be happy to help.
I'm answering honestly. I think I'm a C.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely recognize that in you. And personally, when it comes to like the work environment, I would lean that way as well. It's like, no,
Yeah, yeah.
we're a team. I want to help. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If
A
you
win
said
is for a win for you is a win for me.
exactly.
Yeah.
If you said A, you're a taker. B, probably lean more towards matcher. And C, you probably already figured out that's a giver.
Sweet. All right, I'm acing this test. I'm just kidding. I was a matcher first. All right, number 1. It's Friday night, and you've been looking forward to a quiet night at home.
Okay.
You're finally home, and your spouse excitedly suggests doing something social or active. This sounds like Emily's night when I do this to her. Social or active, which you normally both enjoy. For example, inviting friends over for games, heading to the tennis. This is definitely me to Emily. Dinner at a restaurant, dancing, not dancing.
I was going to say, you guys go
Would
dancing?
you, A,
Yeah.
suggest doing something like that tomorrow night?
Okay.
B, explain that you're not up for it and crash on the couch? Or C, jump up and say, let's do it?
There's almost never a quiet night at my home.
I don't doubt that.
But I'm trying to put myself in this scenario. I would probably, if I'm really looking forward to just to kicking back and not doing anything, I would probably lean towards saying, hey, how about maybe tomorrow night? I would probably lean
Maybe
towards
tomorrow.
that. If I could tell she's really, really excited about going out, I could say, hey, let's do it. But I'd probably lean a little bit more towards, how about tomorrow?
So you're leaning more towards matcher, but giver was your other possibility if you were to just say yes.
Yeah. Again, that sounds like me. Okay, here we go. You're at a church potluck. And as you grab food, you notice there is only one more serving of your favorite dish. I don't know what that is, but just picture it in your mind. You hear someone, a few people behind you, mumbling, oh, they're almost finished with that favorite dish. What do? A, turn and say, hey, let's make sure that you get some and serve them the last portion. B, suggest splitting it. Or C, act like you didn't hear them and finish it off.
Man, I can't even think of what. Maybe like a T-Day cookie,
Oh,
right?
right.
We're gonna go with T-Day cookie.
Okay.
And I'm gonna lean towards matcher here. I'm gonna say, hey, let's
split this
Let's
guy.
split this thing because this matters to me too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And
So
I was technically here first. So.
you nailed it. The B, the split, is the match. A, you're a giver. Hey, here, you can have it. And taker is the what? I didn't hear anything. I'm gonna grab the last one.
Take. That's great. Not great, really, but. All right, the last one.
Sure.
The last one. There's someone in your life who is always in need of something.
Okay.
They have sent you a text asking for a favor. Do you, A, ignore the text, B, say you would like to, but, and come up with an excuse not to, or C, help them?
Okay, I definitely would not ignore the text.
That would do a lot of harm.
Yeah, I definitely would not ignore the text. I'd probably try to find some way to actually meet the need. It may not necessarily be on their timetable, but I would probably have a conversation and figure out, hey, let's try to do this maybe in a couple days if I'm really strapped for time. But I try to probably still meet it.
Yeah, you are leaning towards the giver there, and that's actually something I learned from you, is that like if you are saying yes to someone to help them, you don't have to just lay down and only do it on their terms.
This is when you want it? Oh yeah, it's no problem. It's
like
2:30 in the middle of the night.
It's absolutely okay to like have some boundaries there and be like, listen, I want to help.
Yeah.
But, like this is when I can. You know?
Okay, I think it's pretty safe to say that, Josh, you are an evil giver. Oh, sorry, an evil taker, and I'm clearly the giver.
Evil giver.
Yeah, I don't know what that would look like, but I'm sure that's you, Josh. No, I don't think we actually discovered that at all. Instead, I think you probably lean a little bit more towards giving, maybe the matching a little bit too, and I probably lean
like
more towards the
50-50.
matching.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, just so we're clear on some of these definitions, walk us through just some practical definitions of what it actually means to be a giver, to be a taker.
Okay, so a giver is a person who is who goes into interactions and is fully expecting to meet needs, right? They're not worried about what they're going to get out of anything. They're looking for, what does this person need from me and how can I meet that?
Yeah.
And then the taker is the exact opposite. They're the person who is completely self-serving. They're not looking to serve at all anyone but themselves. They're wanting to get rather than give.
Yeah.
And then the matcher is someone who is willing to give as long as the giving is coming back.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
If it's one-sided, they're not up for it.
If it's one-sided, it quickly becomes okay. I need to shut that down. You
Yeah.
know, and I'll even maybe even fall into the taker, right? Like if I'm a matcher and somebody's taken, I'm just gonna be like, I'm a taker too.
Yeah.
You know?
If that's what they're throwing down, guess what? I will as well.
Yeah.
So which one do you think is actually the most productive, successful way to live your life? Giving, matching, or taking?
So, if we're taking God out of the equation,
Okay.
taker for
Okay.
sure. I think the people who are takers, like, can just get, and like if you go into every situation, like how can this serve me? You can probably get really good at serving yourself. But if God is in the equation, I would say definitely more towards giver. Like if you're the type of person that is trying to live like Christ, he very clearly was a giver, if that makes sense.
And maybe it really comes down to how we define productive and successful,
Mm-hmm.
because as a Christian, maybe productive and successful doesn't necessarily look like what the world would say productive and successful looks
Yeah,
like.
absolutely.
Okay. Well,
I don't know if that.
no, that's good. In fact, I mean, as Christians, that's definitely the worldview that we would have. Again, going back to Adam Grant, he wrote this book called Give and Take, and he did a ton of research on this. He actually looked into different studies that had been done. He even did a study specifically, I believe, with a group of salespeople, but he worked with some engineers. He looked at studies done with those who were going through education, specifically in the medical field, and he wanted to find out, okay, who are most successful? Are they the givers, the takers, or the matchers? And what he found is that the least productive are actually the givers.
Really? Okay.
That they score the lowest. So when it came to the engineers, these were the guys that were always trying to help other people figure out their problems, and they were not getting their own stuff done. And so their productivity dropped. When it came to those in the educational field trying to get their degree in nursing and doctorates, these are the individuals who actually had a very strong opinion towards, I love to help people. Like they checked that box, but they had the worst grades. And then when it even came to the salespeople, those who were most generous, they weren't the ones that were actually meeting their sales quota. So we have to go back again. Well, who do you think it is then? Do you think it's the matchers? Do you think it's the takers? What do you think?
I would say, like, in life, probably the takers. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's not actually the way it is.
I've got good news for you. It's not the takers.
Okay,
And we all
good.
like, oh my goodness, thank goodness that's not true. Now, what they find is, at least in the short run, they may be very successful and they may be very productive. But eventually, what happens is that third category, the matchers, don't put up with it anymore because they have this sense of justice. They have this sense of fairness, and they're like, dude, this guy's just taking. I'm going to stop giving, and I'm going to start punishing this guy because that's what's just, that's what's fair. So, who do you think is most successful?
It's got to be the only category left.
It's got to be the matchers, right? It's not. And
Wait,
you're
what?
probably like, wait, what? Hey, is there a fourth category you didn't tell me about? No, it actually goes back to the givers again, which is really weird.
okay.
So in their
Good.
study,
Thank
it's the
goodness.
giver, it's the giver.
Thank goodness.
But what you need to understand is in the research, there was a group of givers who were lagging far behind. Grade-wise, when it came to productivity, when it came to sales, they were not meeting the really the goals that they had.
Yeah.
And then there was a group of givers who were very giving, very generous, were helping other people, but they were the ones who were leading the pack. And so it seems to be that there is a way of giving that can actually cause you to still have success, still be productive, and at the same time not burn yourself out. And that's what we're going to look at now. How can we give in such a way that hopefully the words of Jesus come true, right? Jesus says it's better to
Give than to receive.
it's better to give than to receive. And I think we all agree that Jesus is probably right on this one. So how do we give in such a way? Well, the givers who are successful and productive, what they found is they're consistently asking three questions.
Okay.
Three questions. Why, when, and for whom? Why, when, and for whom? And so Josh and I, we're going to unpack the why, when, and for whom, and hopefully you guys can begin to figure out, okay, maybe if I ask myself these questions, I'll be creating a richer community as I give with purpose and intentionality and not just getting burned out. Okay, so let's talk about the why for a moment. There was a study that was done with a number of volunteers who charted for 2 weeks all the giving that they did every single day. And so they would record, okay, I gave this way, and this is why I gave. And at the end of the day, some of the reasons for why they gave was, well, my giving matched up with my values. Like I gave because I cared about that person. And then at the same time, sometimes they gave out of obligation. Maybe they sensed like their arm was being twisted and like, okay, I guess I have to. And then they also recorded, every single time, they recorded their energy level at the end of the day. Are they in high spirits? Are they being renewed? Or are they feeling burnt out, frustrated, and annoyed? So it's probably not something that takes a rocket scientist to figure this out. If someone was giving based on their values, how do you think they're feeling at the end of the day?
Pretty good.
Yeah, high energy level, right? And that's exactly what they found. When they gave because it was out of obligation, because they felt forced into it, how do you think they felt?
Drained.
Drained, absolutely drained, burnt out, used, the list can go on and
It's like
on.
when you're at a shop and you pay for something and then the little tip thing pops up. It's like, how much do you want to give? It's like, ugh, I didn't even know this was going to be
Right.
require a tip.
But now that guy's looking at me
Yeah.
and he's got a tear rolling down his face, it's like, oh, I guess I'll
Can't
be
feed my
tipping.
family.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So let's look at some of the implications when it comes to our giving. The why behind why we're giving is really important. When you are giving based on your values, when you're giving based on the purpose that God has created you for, called you into, that's going to fuel you. That's going to excite you. But if you're giving for other reasons, that's probably going to eventually burn you out. It's going to exhaust you, and you'll find yourself drained at the end of the day. So start asking the question, why? Why am I giving? Why am I giving? You've got the second. You've got the win.
The win. And this one is finding out when it's the best time to give. There was a case study done, 17 engineers that I think you actually already brought up before, but these engineers had a really hard time meeting a quota that was just impossible with a laser printer. And these engineers expressed that they were unable to complete that task because they were constantly spending time fixing other people's problems. They were the type of people that were called first to fix any technological issues, and so they just didn't have time to do their own stuff. And so they decided that instead of just, deciding to be a matcher and just taking, they were going to still give, but they were going to give at a very specific time. And they would put out days that were no take days, right? Or no give days. And these days they were completely honed in on what they had to get done. This is the principle of the
First things first.
first things first, or like putting the oxygen mask on when you're in the airplane, which I think is actually in the first things first thing. This idea that if I can get my things done, I'll still make time for other people, and I can still have time for other people. And they weren't burnt out. They actually got the impossible project done because they were able to set aside time for giving rather than just doing it at all times whenever people interrupt them. Another case study research. Go ahead.
I find that one pretty freeing too. We've already made mention of it a little bit, but I think particularly when it comes to positions like ours, there is this sense that, well, you're a pastor, you're supposed to meet needs all the time. And it's yes, I want to meet that need for you, but let's carve out a time that's best. And honestly, even when I'm talking with other Christians, there is often a sense of there is such an obligation to meet every single need that comes up that I've actually known, parents who neglect their own kids, and really that's their primary responsibility as a steward of what God has given them, their kids, because they're taking care of other people's kids. And it's like, well, take care of your kids first, and then with your extra, give and give generously.
No, I think for me, like learning that has been crucial in 7 years of ministry, because very early on, I just tried to say yes all the time. And Emily and I had moments where like she would be like, I don't feel like you're giving me enough time. I feel like I'm getting whatever is left. She should never feel that way. She should feel put first. And so we talked that through, and then just establishing that, when we have plans, I'm going to tell people no. I'm going to tell people that I'd love to help, but all right, we're gonna do it around this other time. And that was actually like a really like learning that I can do that and people aren't gonna be upset was really, really freeing because I thought, you know, if I don't say yes right now, I'm gonna let that person down, and then they're gonna be disappointed in me, and they're not gonna ask me for help anymore. I'm gonna be not dependable. But really, what I was doing was becoming undependable for the people I really cared about.
Yeah, and maybe even setting boundaries with takers too.
Absolutely.
And that's a healthy thing that we're going to talk about in just a moment too. But you were going to share another study.
Yeah. So I think a psychologist. Sorry, I get them confused all the time. Did a study on 5 people who did. Or people who did 5 random acts of kindness throughout the week versus like just randomly, or 5 acts of kindness all together at the same exact time, and carving that time out. And they found that the people at the end of the week were a lot more satisfied after doing 5 that were planned all at the same time around this one big moment, rather than just 5 throughout the week. They were a lot more fulfilled because it's just more exciting in a way. On top of that, I think you get the sense that you're accomplishing something rather than just randomly. It's you're carving time out. So like I don't know, it almost feels like a sacrifice in a way. And if it's all at the same time, like it just feels
a little bigger.
Yeah.
No, that's neat. So again, first question: why? Why am I giving? And when you find out the answer to that, hopefully it's lined up with your values, then ask the question, well, when? Will it be best after I've done what's productive, what my primary purpose is, with my extra? How can I give, and how can I give in such a way that is going to uplift the community around me, but also not burn me out? The third and final question is for whom? Who are you going to give? Now, this one is really important for you who lean towards giving. Like if you know you are a giver, you need to understand that takers love you and they love to take advantage of you because you're gonna give them what they need and they're just gonna keep on taking, and you may not even notice that they are takers, because a lot of takers, well, they're really agreeable, they're really warm, they're really nice. We think of like a taker with sharp teeth and cackling, ha ha ha, right? They're just evil people. They're not though, they can be very agreeable, but then 6 months down the road, you find yourself wore out and you're wondering, why am I not fulfilled anymore? Well, there's a taker in your life and they're taking credit for all your hard work and they're not giving you anything in return. And so how do you not only identify who these folks are, but maybe create boundaries around those relationships? I think this is particularly important if you are in a job that you're creating teams. Maybe you're even hiring people for positions at the company. If you have any sense of control about matching people up, you need to make sure that you're not matching givers and takers, because that will be detrimental to a giver. Here are a few things that will hopefully be red flags that someone is a taker. Number 1, they use pronouns like I and me more than we and us. Josh, have you ever had someone in your life who does a lot of I and me, and you're thinking to yourself, well, yeah, but I think I had something to do with that too. You ever have that?
Yeah.
It's kind of annoying. Yeah. And on the other hand, have you ever had someone who, they're saying we and us, and you're thinking, oh yeah, I kind of contributed to it, but wow, thanks for inviting me into that win.
Yeah.
It's just
more
refreshing.
The only time they use we and us is when they're the one who made the mistake.
Yeah. We really messed up on this one. No, dude, that was you. Yeah, good call. This one is maybe a little sillier, but it's on the list. How do you find someone who is a taker? They have vain profile pictures on social media. So I don't know if you've noticed, if you've ever been like scrolling through Facebook or Instagram and you see a picture and that person looks like dramatically better in that photo than they do in real life, they say that that's probably an indicator that they're a bit full of themselves and they might be a taker. The last one I think is pretty important. If they treat people above and below them distinctly differently, meaning they kiss up and they kick down. To those who are in authority over them, those who have the power to advance them, if they are warm, kind, and generous to them, but then people who can't actually move their career forward or give them anything, they're rude, cold, and a jerk to, that is a huge red flag that you're probably dealing with a taker.
Yeah.
All right, any final thoughts before I give kind of a quick, hey, this is what you should probably be doing?
So something that like was really critical for me to learn about a year ago was from a pastor who was sharing. I listened through podcasts and like it was in Kroger like getting groceries, and I could hear. I realized I'm audibly out loud going, yeah, oh. Yeah, and like there's people in the aisle that are looking at me, and I'm like, oh, I need to like be quiet.
You're
but, like,
really
it was
into those
just that good.
vegetables.
But he was talking about like what gets Christians to be burnt out, like genuine Christians to hit the point of being burnt out, and it's because there's just like this guilt sometimes as givers that we feel like God wants us to always say yes, and if we don't, then we're somehow disappointing Him. But just reminding ourselves that our faith is not works based, and God has never ever asked you to be like somebody's like stepping stool at all times. Like that is not what He wants. And this guy said, there is such a thing as a selfish giver. There's a selfish Christian who loves takers. Like in this case, I'm using our language, but like he loves takers because they get this sense of, oh, I'm so good.
Yeah.
I'm so good. I'm saying yes to all these things. And like, oh, when people look at me, they're like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do all those things. And you just get this like sense of pride. And if that's your what for, or like that's what your what is, then you're going to get burnt out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But if you're saying yes to the right things, if you're genuinely asking, okay, I'm not doing this to please others. I'm doing this because I want to say yes to what God wants me to do. Then you're going to say no to things that aren't quite as good. Like I think we've talked about this. The importance of when you say yes means you're saying no to everything else.
Right.
So are you saying the yes to the best thing? And are you saying yes to the thing, to giving of your time the best way? And I think that is crucial to those of you that fall into that giver category that feel like you have to say yes all the time. But really, like, you're saying no, you just don't realize it.
Not only that, but I mean, Jesus didn't say yes all the time either. I mean, look at all the people that He healed, but there were hundreds, if not thousands of people who were close proximity that didn't actually receive a healing. And that's okay. So final thoughts. It's probably best, like the best strategy would be to lean towards giving without keeping score. Matching is fine, I guess, on some level, but not keeping score is probably the best for your heart. And at the same time, be comfortable asking, hey, why? Why am I giving? Why should I maybe say wait on this giving? What's the why? And then, when it comes to when, prioritize what is most important, what God is calling you to, priority number one. And then with your extra, go ahead and give generously. And then finally, if you're one of those givers, you got to make sure that you are giving to the right folks and creating those healthy boundaries with those who might want to take. With that, let's make this summer a summer of giving.